What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Biblical Hitman. Oh my goodness, folks, we've got an appearance from an outside land, folks. Taylor is back on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Let's go. It's me, Steven, your host. Unfortunately, Jesse's not here with us tonight. Joining us yet again, reoccurring guest, a friend, Tim Constantine, host of Sixth Sensory Podcast. It's always an opportunity, a great blessing to have him on the show. He's going to pretty much he's going to continue us on from the last show that we did with him. And he just kept texting me and telling me, he's like, this one's going to be a banger. This one's going to be a banger. I'm like, all right, let's get it, folks. But if you want to support us, it's free. How about you head over to each of our channels and hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends. Hit us up on YouTube. You can also find us on audio platforms as well, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. But we are on anything. We're on all kinds of audio platforms. While you're there, 5-star reviews, follows, hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified when we drop content, because we drop it quite often, folks. But Tim, brother, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, man. And we were talking about this a little bit, but I don't want to give people the wrong impression. This was not like some very big, long, planned out thing. I think we've been talking about this for like a couple days, since Friday or Thursday.
Yes.
So I don't want to give people the wrong impression. It's like, I don't have this like grandiose presentation, I don't think. We'll just see what happens. But
right. I was on the treadmill. I was on the treadmill at work, and I was like walking my 4 miles. I'm sweating, and I just a thought popped in my head. It reminded me of something that you said. I gave you a call. We ended up talking for 30 minutes. I was like, let's get you on the show. You're like, all right, let's do it. And then boom, here we are, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, that's a great place to start. I think you said something to me about the Zohar.
The Zohar, man. Yeah, the Zohar. We were getting into the idea that that's the first pretty much translation of the Kabbalism, right? And the Kabbalistic view of things. It gets into the mysticism ideas of that nature, but it also kind of touched on the fact of what the capabilities these angels may have, and that what they may be able to do here in the physical realm. And it kind of initiated, or it mentioned something as far as that they can take appearance as male and female. And it made me think of what you were talking about, right? You were getting into Ishtar. You were getting into, this feminine goddess spirit that was influencing people, right? That were, developing these big unions, right? Or these big nations, right? One was America. The other one was Great Britain. And, you had talked about John Dee. You talked about George Washington, that they were having this, contact with this feminine goddess. But real quick, before we get into all this, real quick, I forgot to let you plug all your information. So if you wouldn't mind, just plug all your information for the listeners, and then we'll dive right into this.
Yeah, and I'll keep it quick so we can follow this thread. I'm Tim Constantine. My show is Sixth Sensory Podcast. I spell out SIX, Sixth Sensory. It's on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Patreon, Instagram. And come check the show out. We're going to be dropping a show soon with Steven here. I'm really looking forward to that drop. And but what you said, man, about the Zohar, and thank you for letting me plug my stuff there. But maybe I should give a disclaimer here, because I might, now that I'm thinking more about what I am going to say, and answer in answer to what you're saying, disclaimer probably needs to be said here. I might go some places today that no Christian has dared go before. Okay, so everybody just hang on.
Going outside the sandbox, are you?
Oh yeah, we're going outside.
Don't
the sandbox,
go
folks.
into the forest, Johnny.
I don't know. Maybe somebody out there has blazed this trail before, and I'm just unaware.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure someone just literally gripped the bottom of their chair and they just leaned forward about 4 inches. And I'm sure they're super zoned in right now.
We're going to go there. And yeah, you said some of these angels in the Zohar have the ability to choose what form they take, male or female, right? And we talked about that on the phone. I'm like, oh, I've got something that comes to mind right now in the Bible. And I'm like, well, let's just save it. I'm like, I'll just walk you through it on a show one day, right? So here it is. It's Proverbs, right? So let's go to Proverbs. I've got my Bible here. So in Proverbs, what we see in my opinion, I'm going to break all this down, is we see an example of a female celestial figure, or just a female figure in general, before Eve. Some circles would call her Sophia, which has been used as another name for wisdom. And in this passage and in this book of the Bible, she's called wisdom, okay? It seems to be another name for a female aspect of God. That's what it seems to be, right? So, it's all through Proverbs, like Proverbs 1, verse 20. Wisdom cries out in the street, in the squares, she raises her voice. And what we see here is Solomon has personified wisdom as a woman and as a lady, right? And she takes on this personality. And she says she's going to laugh at people's calamity later in here. She's a real entity, right? She says she's going to laugh at people when they realize in a panic or in a frenzy that they need wisdom in their life, but it's too late. So she has this like textual life of her own. And then if this just keeps this snowballs, right? So if you go to Proverbs 4, 5 through 9, she's shown as an honorable female figure here. It says, starting with verse 5, it says, "Get wisdom, get insight, and do not forget, nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever else you get insight. Prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a fair garland. She will bestow on your head a beautiful crown." So, like I said, I just see it snowballing from here, because if you jump now to chapter 8, it gets really deep. And this is why I don't think, because I've heard this growing up in church and all that, the overall notion that people seem to have was that the first female anything was Eve. Full stop. This, I think, throws a wrench in that. This is Proverbs 8, Proverbs 8, verse 22. Excuse me. So the Lord, this chapter is entitled "Wisdom's Part in Creation." The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of long ago. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs abounding with water, before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills, I was brought forth. When he had not yet made earth and fields, or the world's first bits of soil, when he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, I was there. When he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him like a master worker, and I was his daily delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. So, what I gathered from that is that there's this entity who was there for the creation of mankind and the earth and all the other things I just mentioned, standing beside the Lord as, was it say there, a master worker. So I would wager that wisdom is this female aspect of God that's been around for a very long time and seems to have a life of her own, and is like a goddess figure. And I know people go, "Oh, whoa, what did he just say?" I'm not being pagan here. I'm just using the term goddess because she's female, right? So but what were you going to say, Taylor?
Do you think that could be one of the almost like Counsel of God members, you know what I'm saying, that sits among God? Because that's what I'm starting to think.
I do.
Okay.
I think that. And
yeah, it makes sense.
If you go real deep into this, so wisdom in Hebrew is chokmah. And I looked in some of the Jewish texts, and I've got these notes here about this. This is what the Jewish mystics and non-mystics believes in some occasions. Chokmah is described as the primordial ancient point of divine wisdom, which shines from the will of God. This point remains incomprehensible until differentiated and given form in Binah. That's how you say that, Binah. The Zohar, going back to the Zohar, emphasizes Chokmah's role in the emanation process and its association with the sense of sight, as well as inner spiritual sense of taste that precedes and arouses sight. So there's an interplay between Chokmah and Binah, and it's crucial for understanding how wisdom becomes concrete understanding. And so what we're seeing here, I know that's like deep stuff, but theologically, I know that's got some depth to it, but what we're seeing here is that Chokmah is related to Binah and the Tree of Life, and has to do with all things associated with the Tree of Life. So this theologically, this goes deep, right?
Yeah, like this even kind of gets into what it illustrates in my mind, like Mount Olympus or something, right? Or this idea, again, I might have butchered that, but it's like where Zeus and the other gods kind of sit, and it's like this council, and they hate Kronos, right? Kronos hates them. It's like this, it's like there's this war between the council and the creator, and it's like, okay, is this getting into what we see maybe when it's talking about let us make man in our image? Is this the plurality of this council that possibly had maybe a position in creation? I mean, I'm not dogmatic on it. I straddle the idea, because I also straddle the idea of the Trinity, and that this means the Trinity, and that this is God, right, that holds this domain over this idea. But I also am kind of understanding both ideas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like divine counsel, right?
Yeah,
And I'm looking for that. It's in Deuteronomy, and
right.
it's 30 something.
38 maybe. I think it's 30, maybe 38. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
He also says, like, with great wisdom comes much sorrow as well, too. So, and if they're referring to wisdom as like a she, it is kind of interesting to put that take on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
this is female through and through. So I and I'll get this, like, this keeps going, man. Like, honestly, we're going to get a little bit deeper with this too, because where this gets really interesting is I've been researching this. I research like the hidden history of North America and all that stuff, right? So I've been looking at this region concerning the St. Lawrence River. It's the river that comes down through Canada and goes straight into the Great Lakes, and the Greeks knew about it as far back as Plutarch, and the Greeks and their secret society held that information for a long time, and at some point turned it over to the Templars. So I do think that the Templars came over here early on and were in this area of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River and some of the rivers that branch off of it that go down into New York State. And that's where this gets interesting, because I'm tracking down this story. I'm like researching this stuff to do with these Templars having a temple over here in New York State, up on top of a mountain. Basically, they were here well before Columbus, and they were storing knowledge over here. They were creating vaults over here, temples, and just other little places of refuge for knowledge, right? And one of the things they had, I've come to find, are scrolls, ancient scrolls. And there's lo and behold, I found this story. The Templars, some of the modern day Templars right now alive today, have come out and said that they have remnants of or parts of this lost book of the Bible. It's called the Book of the Wars of the Lord. Like Scott Walter is a part of this. He's given like PowerPoint presentations online saying they've recovered these ancient scrolls and that it's this book, right? And what's interesting is this book is mentioned in Numbers 21, chapter 13 through Numbers 21, 13 through 14, excuse me.
Mhm.
It's mentioned in the Bible, right? The book of the wars of the Lord. Otherwise, it's lost. So what's interesting is they've got these passages that they've translated, and I got a transcript of it, and I'm gonna read this, and you're gonna see how this ties in with this episode here. So, in one of these recent PowerPoints, this is some of the text that they revealed. It says, "The goddess wisdom commanded us, and we obeyed, but we set foot not in Edom." So this is being told from the perspective of the Danites. It says the goddess wisdom here is telling them what to do because they're about to go into battle. And it says, "Then a cloud descended from heaven, and out from the cloud spoke, 'These are the people of the Lord, and I am their goddess. You will depart this place or be destroyed, for I do battle this day for the sons of Dan.' The leader of the Edomites sent forth his chariots into the shallow of the river. Then did a silver beast descend from the cloud in the likeness of a great bird, and spat bolts of lightning from its wings into the water, and the horses of the Edomites' chariots died, and the men of the chariots shook as with a palsy, and fell into the waters and drowned. Then a great flame emitted from the mouth of the beast, and the host of the Edomites were consumed." This is wild.
Yeah.
That's
This is
insane.
wild. So if this is real, this is a battle presided over by the goddess wisdom as if she's a general, right? She's representing God on this battlefield according to this text. And I want to make this clear. I'm not making a definitive statement that this is scripture. Okay. I just think this is cool. I
Right.
think it's something to be thought about, something to look more into, right?
Mhm.
It might hold some extra biblical info. That's all I'm saying. And other than that, I'm saying this is very interesting. So I want to get my hands more on this text, this lost book, and I want to read more of it and see if any of it lines up with parts of scripture and all that, and see if we can get something out of this, right? But if this is true, then there might be more to this wisdom figure, right?
Right. Right. Do you think
Yeah.
this wisdom figure like plays a part in the title of like Satan?
I think no. I think some of the other goddesses do. This
How-
seems to be
Because Satan meaning, adversary, right? So
right.
it could be many different,
Okay.
things in rebellion. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it also says, Satan and his angels. So again, I this is why I kind of straddled the idea that maybe it is just a title for one person, or it could be a title for, a few that have made a pact with each other.
Rebel, yeah.
Like for example, why did God put only a certain amount of angels in Sheol, like in darkness?
Mm.
Like, was there a pact that was made? Like, so I'm just giving you an idea of like what the title can
No,
be placed over. That makes
for
sense.
sure. I think that the Satan thing is a group of entities. I really do. And maybe I can get more into that today. I think that it's not this Lucifer character. That's something that was added. That's a Latin word that was added later that means shining one. I don't
Right.
think any writers of the Bible ever wrote down the word Lucifer. But that being said, there are some figures out there who fit that role, right? I'm not saying there's no Satan. I'm just saying his name is probably not Lucifer. And there's a host of these entities that seem to be fulfilling that role that we think of traditionally as Lucifer.
Well, even Lucifer, right, being mentioned only one time in the King James version, at least that's what I can kind of refer to, because that's what I've read the most out of. But Lucifer being mentioned one time in Isaiah, and then you look at the Hebrew breakdown of what Lucifer means. Lucifer meaning light bearer, right, shining one. But it says Hallel, Hallel. Hallel is the Hebrew word that they take and they now use. They put it in through the Latin term Lucifer.
Yeah,
But then
Hallel ben Shahar is what it's.
Right.
Hallel means shining.
At least
one.
from the
Morning star.
Strong's. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
No, Hallel is Hebrew for shining one, and Bel Shahar is morning star. And
right.
I think you're getting ahead of me, actually, Stephen, because I was going to talk
Hallel
about this.
ben Shakar. Yeah, it's funny because we had this talk too with Gary Wayne, and he was getting into this name, and it's so funny, man. Like you see this name in movies, you see Hallel in movies. Like I just said that twice. But what my point I'm making is, like, in 2001 Space Odyssey, the AI was called Hal. Okay. When you get into the movie, the most recent one that was released on Netflix, Happy Gilmore 2, people are like, what do you mean Happy Gilmore has Hallel in it? Well, the actual person that played who played that part, it's Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller played the guy who used to run the old person home, right? The retirement home. Well, his name tag says Hal space L with a period.
Dang.
And so what's funny too is in that movie, because I even paused it. I'm a huge person when it comes to predictive programming movies and symbolism. And so I paused it kind of frame by frame in one scene that just like stood out to me. And I paused it, and it's a book that Hallel wrote, right? And it's in the part of the movie, if you folks have watched the movie, but it's where Adam Sandler is actually reading a golf book inside the book that Hallel wrote, which he runs an AA group, a meeting, whatever, an alcohol abuse group or whatever. But the book that he wrote, you get the front cover of it. You actually get to see the front cover of it. And it's a man with his right hand up, his right hand or his left hand down. You have, Solve and Coagula represented right there, if you want to compare that to Baphomet. But the man on there was a shadow figure. You couldn't see him because I don't believe he's been revealed yet. That's kind of like what that means to me. He's also looking at the east, where the rising star, where the morning star comes up, if that makes any sense. And it's the sun rising. And it's crazy when I tell you right now the what the title of that book was. Let me see if I can try and find it here.
And the morning star is Venus. So
right.
So there's again, we could loop in this goddess thread, because I don't think that, like I said, that Isaiah passage that you're talking about, I don't think that's about Lucifer. I'll get into who I think that is later, but because I want to set a couple more things up, but I don't think it's Lucifer, and I think it's got implications that could point to some goddess stuff. Personally, Go ahead.
With these goddess, so it's kind of like we have a lot of the times in the occult, obviously there's like male and female references. The upwards triangle being the male symbol and the downwards being the female, which makes obviously the, star of Rephaim as well. But what do you think, what is the whole thing having to do with male and female? Why do they have such a separate thing in the occult with that?
So hold on, just before you answer that question, I just want to say, I have to say what the name of this book was, because it's crazy, bro. It's so crazy, and I'll show it to the camera real quick. But this is what it looks like. Okay, it's Hal at the top, and it says "My Struggle Against Unfairness," and at the bottom left corner it says "A True Story." So to me, it just makes me feel like,
rubbing in our face.
It's the Gnostic view of it.
That Hell L actually also goes back to a figure in the pre-Islam Arab world who was a god, possibly a goddess. So there you go. It's this androgynous thing potentially.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yeah.
think you're talking about, Taylor. Is there's an
Yep.
androgynous thing, and if you go back and you look at all the old myths, they all
Mhm.
contain these sort of androgynous
Androgynous
characters. I just think that the further back we go, it goes back to what we were talking about with the Zohar before. These angels having the ability. I don't even want to call them angels. These celestial entities having the ability to come down here and choose what gender they want to be. That
Right.
just seems to be it's too widespread of a thing in old myths. It just seems like that was the case, right? Now I think what we have here is like we have two factions, like with going back to the wisdom thing. I think, God's got his good guys. This is good versus evil, right? We're in this cosmic war. God has his hosts. And I don't have an issue with God having a female angelic figure or figures as a part of that host who actually sometimes take to the battlefield, right? Because if men and women are made in the image of God,
Right.
well, there you go. There's a female aspect to God. He's the creator. Women are the creators of life here. So it's like they have that aspect in common, right? And we have that too. Men have that too. Like we help in creating life as well, but the females deliver it through. So if they're made in the image of God, there you go, right? It just makes sense to me. I don't know why it's so unpopular to think about it this way. I don't know
Right.
why it had to start with Eve, right?
Mhm.
So
It makes me think too, right? Like when the Bible talks about where the angels, for example, or spirit in general, it doesn't have the ability to marriage or be given in marriage or have the ability to have sex because there's no point to it in the heavenly realm. But because I think right after that it says in heaven, right? So I think that there's in eternity there's no need for multiplying,
mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
here in this realm there's a need for multiplying, and woman came from man, if that, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. Or did she? Right? Women was the idea, was the feminine idea before Eve already a thing? Did it arise in the? I haven't seen anything in the Bible that tells me that there can't be a female figure before Eve, right? And in fact, I think that tells us the opposite thing. And I think so. So like, I'm gonna jump around here. I think the wisdom is the good one, and I think some of these others are the Lilith would be a bad
Yes. I
one,
was just going to
right?
say that in the Enoch,
So
that was the bad version of.
and she's not the only one. There's a couple goddesses mentioned throughout the Bible. Like
Mhm.
this is like a real thing people need to come to terms with. It's just been forgotten about. It's been like, I don't know, it's been whitewashed from our churches. But like if you look at Isaiah chapter 34, I see another interesting narrative here to do with God and battles and goddesses being a part of these battles here on earth, right? Like Isaiah 34 is one of the most mysterious passages and one of the most fascinating passages in the Bible, and it's one of my favorites because it's a passage dealing with God having a war with the Edomites again, right? And except it doesn't say anything about the Israelites being there and fighting. This seems like God himself was fighting with the Edomites. And you have this goddess named Lilith in here too. So some of this says, for God has a sacrifice in Basra, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. Wild oxen shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall be soaked with blood, and the soil made rich with fat. And what this does is this parallels with Isaiah 63 as well, where it says the same thing. It says their life force, the blood was soaked into the land. And it says, for the Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of vindication by Zion's cause. So he's fighting for Zion, right? And the streams of Edom shall be turned to pitch, and her soil into sulfur. Her land shall become burning pitch. And you can go and look at this place today. It still exists. Where Basra was, the capital of Edom. It's still there. It's still in ruins today. And there was this, like war, right? But it's like if we were to reference what's potentially in this book of the Wars of the Lord, it's giving us a picture of how God does battle, right? And you've got, what did it say, a silver beast that shot out lightning bolts, and it sounds like there might be some spacecraft involved here, right? Like this could get real Star Wars like real quick.
It's so crazy, dude.
Oh yeah.
And what happens here
It's
is
crazy, bro.
Lilith is in the midst of this somehow, because it says, it's talking about how after the battle, God has cursed the land of Basra to remain a ruin, right? And it says, they shall name it no kingdom there, and its princes shall be nothing. Thorns shall grow over its strongholds. It shall be a haunt of jackals, and abode for ostriches. Wildcats shall meet with hyenas. Goat demons shall call out to each other. There to Lilith shall repose and find a place to rest. So this is interesting. It's like, why is there now an entity being sort of chained to the region? Like, there's something with these spiritual battles and these goddesses and God himself being involved. I just keep seeing it, and what if these goddesses were involved with something similar to the Watchers and what they did in Genesis 6, right? And maybe Lilith is it says she's reposed. It means basically she's it's almost like they've locked her in a tomb beneath Basra, and she's in some sort of a sleep, like a cryogenic state. She's not dead and she's not fully alive. She's locked in this land down there. What did she do? And
It makes me think of of some sort of rebellion or some sort
yes,
of involvement in the Genesis 6 conspiracy. It makes
mm-hmm,
me think too of the term, like Mother Earth, right?
mm-hmm,
Well, what were the Nephilim? The Nephilim were the earthborn. So it's like, I don't know if maybe you're alluding to that, but
I,
it's making me think that was this Lilith character involved that could have come from, some sort of part of the lineage of Cain that got involved, or I don't know, or was before that, right? Like that was involved in this whole copulation event,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't know if you're following
And
with me.
I am, and was this figure Wisdom, this goddess Wisdom, was she involved with this fight as well, and putting down, because in that thing I read before from this lost book of the Bible, it seems like she's a general figure. She's warring with Edom in that book as well, but I would say, like, we should shift our focus to another goddess for a second, and that being Asherah, to answer this question.
The
Because
Asherah poles in the Bible, what they were talking about too. Mm-hmm.
yes,
They would dance
exactly.
around them.
All right, teach me, please.
Okay, so she's
let's go.
I'm gonna use her to talk to answer your question, or whatever you said, Stephen. It's not a question, but like what you were just saying about this bloodline thing and the Nephilim and all that. So Asherah is mentioned 10 times in the Bible that I know of. The Hittites say that she had 77, or sometimes they say she had 88 offspring. And in the texts, she's called a progenitor or a progenitress. A progenitor in the Bible is a direct ancestor who is the origin of a lineage or the origin of a family group, okay? So AKA Asherah may have been part of some sort of a breeding program. And let me just highlight this.
Jeez.
She's not human. She's goddess. She's definitely a goddess.
Or demigod. What about demigod? You think that could be the
sure.
case? Because the hybrid,
Sure.
I mean, they're trying to procreate, so they'd have to be like half human, half like maybe fallen angel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well,
I don't
what's the interesting thing with the demigod aspect is that I think that at some point they were like, it's like, yeah, they're half god because technically they're half fallen angel or
Yep.
celestial body and then half human. But why did God limit their years, or just man's years in general, to 120?
Because you will
It
die
makes
like
me
men.
Well, yeah, but but it makes me think though that they were immortal.
They were before, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
But
So
then he limited
people
it.
or the entities.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I think that the people, especially the people associated with these entities, were definitely had longer lives. You know, they had apparently they had the ability to heal themselves too. When you look at some of the roots of the word Rephaim, which is a good point here, because I think that these goddesses were part of a breeding program similar to the one found in Genesis 6 with the watches. So, you know, before the flood, the giants were Nephilim, right? After the flood, they're Rephaim.
Right.
Remember, I was on here, I told you guys about the cult of Rephaim and how it's inexorably linked to the cult of Ishtar. There's some linkage there. So how did those giants, how did that Nephilim gene show back up on the earth after the flood? Well, what if these female entities who are mentioned plain as day in the text facilitated some sort of a goddess breeding program? They flipped the script a little bit. I don't know why I'm like stumbling over my words tonight, but you know, it like what they did before the flood was the watchers, the male watchers come down and have kids with the women of Earth. What if later, after the flood, the goddesses are mating with the kings of Earth, creating hybrid kids that way?
True.
I wonder if there's any.
I've said this on podcasts before, and people looked at me like they looked at me cross-eyed like I was nuts.
That makes sense.
But I think there's something to this.
Yeah, it makes sense. No. I mean, if they're coming down to male form and mating with the daughters of man, why can't they do it as female form as well and mate with, you know, kings of?
Well, it goes.
It
back
says
to
she's a progenitor. It says that Asherah, a goddess, is a progenitor. And in the cultures around the world, they say, yeah, she had 77 kings at least she was mama to. We know that they were doing this. I'm just saying, is this part of what we're reading about in Scripture when it says they were on the earth in those days and after?
Right, sure, right. So here, I want to read a verse from Jude here, because I was just actually we brought this up in the live that we did just before this recording, but this is Jude 1 verse 6, and it says, "And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, or aka their first estate, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness from the judgment of the great day. As Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, in similar manner to these, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." So, which means, I mean, they got destroyed by fire and brimstone, right? So my thing is there were angels as well in that little narrative window of Genesis, where talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham, Lot, all this, there were angels present. And we know that even biblically, it was, you know, God was like, or Lot was like, hey, you know, if there's one righteous, you know, then save the city. And God's like, there's not one righteous. And he goes down all the way to zero pretty much. Yeah. So I don't know what you guys think of that, because
I think they were definitely like, they weren't just doing like, you know, homosexual acts and all this other stuff and depravity, like perverted acts and doing stuff with children. They were also mating with fallen angels, like what you're saying. I think that they were doing everything under the sun, and that's why there was not one righteous, because they were literally, I think, creating hybrids in that city by doing all that
another
stuff.
Thing too with the strange flesh idea, because Jude's making a direct comparison of what happened in Genesis 6 and what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah are in like manner of each other. It's just it's a mirror image of each other. They both followed in the same suit with the same agenda. So it's either two things, right? So it's either the fallen angels mated with the women in Sodom and Gomorrah, or it's kind of like what we're getting into, like, are these angels having the ability to now take male form and female?
I think they could switch back and forth.
And now they're like doing this whole thing, you know, together, forming who knows what kind of race that gets into. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, I think the more these angelic figures higher up on the hierarchy had this ability. I don't know if every angel has the ability to come down here and choose what gender they want, but certainly the ones with more power essentially seem to be able to do this. And in fact, Ishtar, I'd say, is one of those because for the Hittites, she's listed under the male gods and the female gods. So she was able to present herself as a male apparently sometimes. Um, I, and I'm wondering too if Lilith is like was being sort of punished in that passage I just read because she had something to do with this too. She was coming down here and helping to further this 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 bloodline, but through a breeding program.
Oh,
Right.
and it's crazy you mentioned that because Lilith, it does literally translate to like mother of demons, like mother goddess.
She's said to be like the first vampire, right?
Yep. Vampiric stuff going on. That's why they crave immortality. That's how they get it, is through the perverted acts they were doing, like, and through pretty much eating of blood and drinking of blood, they would prolong their life. And they would offer that to their servants.
It's funny
as well.
too. Like the Bible says, the life is in the blood. There's something in the blood that is very. It's supernatural.
These Edomites were also. Let me see if I can get this right. Amalekites, and that means blood liquor. Do you guys? I've read this before.
Yes.
Yep.
I think it's the Amalekites, but they are Edomites. So going back to that scripture, that Isaiah 34, Lilith is mentioned here with this destruction of Edom, right? And these Edomites were also said to be blood lickers. So yeah, Lilith probably had some sort of a vampire blood-looking cult going on out there with them too. But I do think that there was comes down to heavier stuff to do with DNA and breeding and all that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. And I still think it's up to today. I still think it's going on to today. Like these vampiric like lines. Like I truly believe like that there's people out there that are still doing this like to this day. I've heard of even some people who have mentioned going to some clubs that they were a whole bunch of vampires and just participating in this kind of like drinking of blood and doing stuff like that. It sounds wonky, like some Hollywood movie, but it's still going on. I think I don't think they ever stops. Like from back then up until now, they're just kind of more hidden per se.
Yeah,
in plain sight.
Yeah, these practices were carried throughout the ages in these little small groups. These small groups of occultists have passed the baton throughout the generations, and they've continued some of these practices that most people don't think are still being
sadly,
our thing anymore. But and I think too, like that something happened, right, to have these Nephilim show back up on the earth, right? And like another thing that I see pointing back to the goddesses is like this whole thing to do with these spaceships, right? And I know I'm going to get crazy here, but
let's go.
I've often wondered, did some of these goddesses take some of these priest kings up in the sky during the flood on sky ships? And I'm not kidding, because when I look in the ancient world and I see things like the winged discs that represent flying machines, I'm pretty sure sometimes they'll have the 8-pointed star of Ishtar on them, or they'll have that Templar-looking cross, which is associated with the Anunnaki and Inanna. So the goddesses are associated with these flying crafts, and I've said this before on the show
too. Yeah.
Yes, you've got that Serbian fresco from 1350, and up in the corner, there's clearly a UFO that clearly has the 8-pointed star of Ishtar on it.
Yep.
Dude.
So for a long time, these goddesses have been associated with flying the skies. That's what Ishtar was known for, especially in Uruk, like the city of Uruk, the Sumerian city of Uruk. They were like, she's the one who goes up and flies in the skies. Like it all points back to goddesses, and they seem to have had this technology that they could get people off planet for a little while.
Right. And it's just people need to think about this logically, right? If we went from 200 years ago, literally carrying, oil lanterns around, and we were, electricity didn't really, it was getting worked on, right? But we've accelerated so fast. We have artificial intelligent air, Navy jets flying around in the air. We've got predator drones flying around. People are controlling these things with a little joystick while they're eating a Slim Jim. Dude, this is crazy, bro, right? My whole point is we came up this fast pretty quick, and it was only 200 years. If
Mhm.
we go back before the flood, which the flood completely, full restart, right? And and if you go back in those times, and if there was technology, from the time of Noah, let's just say, right, it would have grown. I mean, it was what, 6 generations until the Genesis 6 event happened, which was
Mhm.
still pre-flood, but 6 generations. But of their generations, they were living to 900, 800 and something years old. We're talking about
Yeah.
a long time.
I think
Even
they
if you're
had like
if
greater
you're saying
technology than
like,
us.
yeah, like if you're saying technology was at one point in its origin and had the ability to grow, it would have. Imagine where we would be 1600 years from now. You know what I'm saying? It would be like the stuff would be incredible. The
Insane.
computers would be in our bodies, is what I'm
That's
saying.
where I think Tartaria and stuff comes into play with that stuff. I think they got rid of that, like that knowledge that they had.
I think some of this technology has possibly been slipped back into our hands from some of these
Yep.
these figures, these
Yeah.
Mhm.
entities. Really, I mean, it's like, and like back to the goddess thing. Like I think this will tell us a lot, and I'm hitting on this so hard today is because I don't see it being talked about in the modern church, but it's all throughout the Bible. It's all throughout the ancient world. This was 100% a thing. This
Mhm.
just goddess thing, and it's like I brought up that Isaiah 37:22 last time I was on here, where it says, it's Hezekiah's prayer about Sennacherib, who was the king of Assyria. And he's a man, right? But in verse 22, God says, "This is the word of the Lord that is spoken concerning him." And he goes, "She despises you. She scorns you." And it's like, okay, who is she? Well,
Mhm.
like we broke down in that last episode, there's multiple passages like this where God addresses the king and then addresses the entity who's ruling over the king, the supernatural entity. And Sennacherib, the king, it was Assyrian, right? He lived in Nineveh. Who was the goddess of Nineveh historically? Ishtar. In
Mhm.
fact, she's the main goddess in all of Assyria in the ancient world. So I don't see how this could be anyone else unless it's Nizrak, which may be an incarnation of Ishtar, because later in this passage of Isaiah 37, it says Nizrak. It says that Sennacherib went home after battle to worship Nizrak. And I found zero Bible scholars with an answer for who Nizrak is. It's a major, major mystery. Some Bible scholars suggest it's a misspelling, and it's that we're talking about Nimrod, but Nimrod was dead. So I just looked into it. It's Niz Rock. There's a god called Niz Abba, who was a Mesopotamian goddess. She's one of the oldest Sumerian goddesses that you can find in writing, and she's the goddess of knowledge. So I'm thinking that this is some sort of amalgamation of Ishtar and Nis Abba. And because she's the goddess of knowledge, I'm thinking that maybe this was Ishtar's attempt to be a knockoff version of Sophia or wisdom, right?
Mm.
I think
Wasn't
Nizrak is a
Ishtar?
format.
Yeah, wasn't Ishtar like a fertility goddess too as well?
Well, that's what they say. She was a
Yeah.
lot of different things.
Okay.
That's
Okay. So it's not just
you'll
one
hear that.
particular.
You'll hear the fertility thing being thrown around a lot more than it should. A lot of
Okay.
people will say that about all these ancient sites. Oh, it was a fertility ritual spot. They don't know that. Half the
Right.
time they don't know that. Like, that's just
Or was
something
it a
that a lot of people
breeding
say.
program spot?
Yeah, well, that type of fertility. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a thing. Like, it was a thing. Don't get me wrong. The fertility thing was a thing, but
Mm.
it everything gets attributed to that, and that's not what everything was about.
Right.
Right.
But
It's so
yeah,
funny how there's different like goddesses for different things. Like the goddess of wisdom, the goddess of fertility, the goddess of this. Well, what's with all that, and why is it pertaining to a female figure? What's the deal with that?
I think it's because these female figures existed, and
Yeah.
this was really a thing in the ancient world.
And the occultists they seem to gravitate towards a goddess figure versus a male figure. I've noticed. I don't know. Are you noticing the same things, or am I just tripping? Because I've noticed they gravitate towards like Mother Gaia. That's like the tree of life. Their tree of life figure. Everything's like, and the having to do with earth and nature is almost a goddess figure as well. What's with this, female?
Well, so I think this is what we're going through right now in a lot of ways, is humanity trying to reconnect with the old ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that was the old ways. I mean, the goddess thing was just huge in the ancient world. And it, from what I could tell, it wasn't Lucifer. They weren't building temples to Lucifer. They were building temples to Ishtar, and
Right.
like, I'm trying to look at these passages of the Bible where God addresses these entities to sort of find these clues, right? Because another one we brought up earlier was at Isaiah 14, and God addresses the king of Babylon, and then he addresses this day star son of dawn, the Hillel ben Shahar. So we've got that format for us in Scripture. We need to be looking at that. Like Ezekiel 28's another one with the king of Tyre. He has a message for the king of Tyre, then he talks directly to the ruling spirit over him. And this is just where, I mean, I looked at this Isaiah thing, and it's like Stephen was saying earlier, you've got the Hebrew for Hillel, meaning shining one, and then Ben Shahar means morning star, and all this relates to Venus. So, and Venus in the ancient world is associated with Ishtar. So,
Oh, man.
Golly, bro, it's like it's all
man.
connected.
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
and
there, I think that there I think the light bulb just went on.
Everything's
to answer
planetary connected. It seems like it's almost like these planets are set up with these principalities, dude, like that correlate with what's going on. Down on Earth,
the celestial entities that rule certain parts of the heavens.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to answer your question, why are all these different goddesses? Why is there one of fertility and one of war and one of knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, I think at the end of the day, there was just a handful of goddesses, and they just kept changing their names across cultures.
Right, recycling them. Yeah.
As people would migrate to different
Mhm.
lands, as culture would shift, they would change the name of their goddess. That's why you see Ishtar in Sumeria, and then
Mhm.
Ostara in the Nordic lands.
I notice a lot of Nordic, like old ways coming back in our society right now too. People are really trying to identify with that right now. I don't think I've ever seen a time like what I've been alive, like to where they're so hard gravitating towards that Nordic culture now. You notice that even like Nordic tattoos and stuff are coming back, and the old ways, and people
we
are
have
just,
we have a
we're in the
I
end
know
times.
this is
I
like
think.
woo woo. It's that. Yeah, I mean, it's probably that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also, we have these memories of the way things were for millennia. It's like, I know
Mhm.
that's woo woo, but it's like, we have like these ancestral memories of the way things used to be. It's almost like it's natural for some
in
of
our
this stuff to
DNA type
happen.
stuff.
Even though I don't promote some of this stuff outside. I
Mhm.
think, walk your path and walk a narrow one and walk according to the will of the Lord,
Mhm.
but some of this stuff has just been practiced by humans for a long time. But yeah, Venus is Ishtar, and that's what that passage kind of made me think of. The path of Venus in the sky makes horns. You see horns associated with Satan, right? Satan wears horns. All goes
Hello.
back. It all goes back to goddess worship, right? The
Golly.
path that Venus makes in the night sky around the rising and setting of the sun makes the horn shapes, and
What's
traditionally
that
the
god
devil
in
has horns.
yeah, what's the god in like Egyptian culture where it has like the sun disk with the horns on it too? What was that called?
That's that's Isis
Okay.
sometimes. That's and
That's crazy.
she's Isis Hathor. There's a lot of Ishtar connections there. But
Mhm.
what I'm doing here is like, I'm trying to we're making steps here to better know our enemy, right?
Right.
Like, I just want to remind people, like, I'm not here to question the Bible. I'm just questioning some of the narratives we've been given concerning the Bible, right?
Question everything except God. That's what I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have to know. Otherwise, we're going to be stupid to like their devices. We got to be wise as serpents, because we're thrown into the world like amongst wolves. That's what the Bible says, man. Like we have to, we can't just be our complacent Christian, like, oh, everything's just going to be okay. And we don't have to know everything. Like, like
Yeah.
we should know about some stuff so we don't fall, into the traps of the enemy,
I got another one here for you. Genesis 14:5, the battle of the kings. It says, in the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephites in Ashtaroth Karnaim. So, like I said, right, the Rephaim have this connection to Ishtar. And what we're seeing here is the Rephaim had named their cities after her too. So, right, so the Rephaim are living in Ashtaroth Karnaim, which means Ashtaroth of the two horns. Goes back to this astrology thing and this goddess thing. Asheroth is also known as Ishtar, right? So in this case, we have the city named after Ishtar and everything else, and they're worshiping Ashtaroth of the two horns associated with Venus, and they're naming their region after that, right? So I just see this now popping out of scripture everywhere. It's like they weren't naming their cities and stuff after Lucifer or Satan. This was after a goddess, right?
Right.
This was a Nephilim Rephaim religion, and it's centered around this Mystery Babylon. Is what it is. The cult of Ishtar, the Mystery Babylon. All the debauchery in the Old Testament centers around this cult of Ishtar, and you see Baal and Moloch. Baal may have been a Nephilim, may have been a real person, hybrid or whatever, but definitely this goddess stuff. And I mean, it just gets interesting here. Like when you look into that Hellel word, like that we were talking about earlier, like I said, the Arabs had that in the pre-Islamic world. It was Hellel, the Meccan moon god, and lunar deities tend to be female. Solar entities seem to be male. So
That's
again, you've got this goddess stuff in there. So
even the Aztecs had that moon god. Like they had a moon god over the moon, but they also had that, like, you ever see that little was it DreamWorks has that little kid fishing off the moon or something like that too? But that's based off of like an Aztec like god. Like, and like there's something behind that I feel like goes very deep, like with that culture, and like I don't know. There's something to all this.
I want to show you guys. We're on to something, right? Like that's what this is all about today. Like this isn't me trying to tell people what's what. I'm just telling people like we need to look at this a little bit closer, right? And I got something I got to show you guys, but I want.
Oh, your mic's a little low. I think you missed.
Oh, something. I think I hit it.
Yeah, no worries.
Is that all right now?
Try again.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it's a little lower, but.
Yeah, let me see. So go ahead, say something real quick.
All right, I don't know what happened there. But,
what'd you do, Tim? What'd you do?
I don't know if maybe you hit the gain knob, but no, you're good. You should. You're good. Okay. You're good. Yeah. You're good.
Well, I want to show you. I want to show you guys something, but I probably need to ask first if I could show this. It does feature nudity, but maybe we can blur out the,
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
The parts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We're pre-recorded, baby.
If you're out there, and you got kids, you just skip this part. Just skip this part.
Full discretion advised.
This is a.
And if you drop for some reason from the studio, just from sharing a screen, just hop back in. You're good.
All right. I know this is weird.
Sometimes it drops.
Is that in Indonesia too? Like they have a goddess.
We're gonna get
like
weird.
That.
So this is a picture of an artifact found in the Rocky Mountains.
No way.
I believe it belongs to
that. That's funny.
I'm sorry. I just saw
this.
I just seen it. That's crazy.
I think this belongs to that race of giants that came over here. I think this was remnants of the Nephilim tribe, and what we see here is clearly an androgen. And up in the top right corner, what do we have?
That's
The
the star of
8-pointed
Ishtar,
star.
right?
8-pointed star of Ishtar. That's it.
Right. Okay, so I have a little connection here I'm making. Now, you guys are familiar. We probably mentioned this earlier, but you guys familiar with the Pleiadian society, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what the Pleiadians are, it's this extraterrestrial race that has had multiple encounters with different contactees, and they're described as being male and female.
Right.
But there's also kind of like two races. There's two genders, but the way they look,
That's hate
looks
speech,
so I know, right? Like they look so they look androgynous. They look like what a transgender would kind of would look like today, right? So
there's something to this today.
Yeah, there's a few experiences here that I could share, but
you guys get what I'm saying with that picture,
yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
That's a glimpse into the past and a glimpse into some sort of a figure that people really worshipped. And it had 6 breasts and a big old, you know what? And
yes,
that was
it's ridiculous.
That's real. These ancient people carved that, and they were over, because we know they were over here. We talked about them, the Temukua tribe down in Georgia, right? They were these 7 to 8 foot people who were practicing child sacrifice, Canaanite stuff, Canaanite ritual practice. We know these giants came over here, and like that's something that they worshipped. That's a remnant of something really worshipped in the ancient world. And I think people
they're creating
need to
these
see
hybrid stuff like that, dude. Like,
Tim, do this for me. I want you to Google this for me and then share this image on your screen. I'm just afraid to do it on mine because sometimes I drop from the studio for some reason. So type in Ashtar Sharan. That's Sheran. And you should have images that show up on Google. Pull up the first one, bro. Right? This is something maybe to contributing to what we're talking about. And this is a Pleiadian species.
Let me share screen again.
Yep. And so this looks so eerily androgynous that I don't know if it's the same.
I don't know if this is going to let me do this because I have the Chrome
I'll tell you
thing.
what, I'll try. If I drop from the call, I can edit all this out. So here, let me see. Here we go.
Hold on, let me look it up on my phone so I can see what is it Ashtar or Ishtar?
It's Ashtar Sharan.
Okay,
Sheran.
Oh yeah, it's a Nordic. It looks just like
a
Nordic.
Now look at the symbol in the right hand. It's an Ishtar
1, 2,
star.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, 7. But it looks.
Wait. I can't tell. It might be 8. Hold on.
Let me see if I can pull this up. All right, Lord, please do not let this drop.
Yeah, it's 7. But here, I'll show people real quick on my phone.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
They can see it right here. Yeah. So that's wild to me, and it's got that symbol there, and there's obviously a wild, crazy symbol right here.
It's the same symbols we just saw on that thing, dude.
Well, this is what I was talking about with these goddesses being linked to the UFO thing. Did we lose Steven?
Yeah.
How's he going to get back in here?
He'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like with the goddesses being linked to this UFO thing, right? It goes back to 1947. And because what happens in 1947 is George Van Tassel's out in the Mojave Desert, and he starts this Ashtar Command movement. He says he was channeling an entity named Ashtar. That's the male form of what I think he was talking about. This Nordic thing.
Yes.
And I mean, it just
and they're
goes
like
deeper.
8 foot tall, like kind of like Nordic looking characters, blue eye, blonde hair usually. I think that's even what Hitler back in the day was trying to go after and look for as well. He was trying to contact that race of Pleiadian fallen, angel things.
Okay, so get this out, and I'll tell this again, but I'll tell it a different way so it's not boring to people, because I want Stephen to hear this. Like, so that Ashtar guy that you pulled up, that goes back to 1947 and the UFO movement, the true beginnings of what the UFO movement is today, right? It's George Van Tassel. It goes out to the Mojave Desert in 1947. He doesn't know Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, but they choose to go to the same desert, and they both talk about channeling an entity. For Jack Parsons, he said it was Mystery Babylon Ishtar. For Van Tassel, he said it was this Ashtar character. And so you got these three guys in the desert at the same time, both saying they're getting these extra dimensional messages from a being called Ishtar, right? And Van Tassel goes on to start the Ashtar Command movement out there, which kind of, in a lot of ways, goes on to become the New Age, right? Like if you take Blavatsky's work and put it with Van Tassel's work, that's how we get a New Age movement in the first place. And for him, it goes back to, for Van Tassel, it goes back to this Ashtar character. They called it the Ashtar Command. It's still around. If you go out to Mount Shasta, they'll tell you at Mount Shasta that on some days it looks like a craft forms above the mountain, right? The clouds come down, and they say, "Oh, it's the Ashtar Command." It was.
It's funny you say that, because my brother, he lives in Cali. He's been to Mount Shasta, and he's seen some weird spiritual stuff up there when he's went up there. You can even feel like a presence up there and a vibration, he said, like when he's up there. So it's just like, bro, there's a lot. I think there's a portal on that mountain, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a portal location. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just not everything's Lucifer. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. I think that's been it's just something people have gotten used to hearing in church, where a pastor gets up there and uses 3 words for the same conceptual entity, being like the devil, Satan, Lucifer. It all kind of has come to represent one entity.
I think there's many things that work for the kingdom of darkness that obviously Lucifer just isn't the only one. Like, let's be honest here, like there's a million different things that work for the kingdom of darkness.
Yeah. I would say that this is a rebel group of cherubim, not just one bad guy.
Yep.
And if you study the Bible, Lucifer becomes sort of difficult to understand, right? And that's the catch here, is that the Bible, the writers of the Bible never use that word Lucifer. It's in some Bibles today. It's because of the Latin Vulgate. They added it later. And
don't they just usually like Beelzebub, whatever the heck you say? Like, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah, he's that's more. I think that's a Baal, a reference to Baal, I think. But and you got the Diablo, right? The Diablo who tempted Jesus. That could have been one of these rebel cherubim too. And honestly, guys, Gadriel is a big one for me. That's who I think most of this stuff can be attributed to. If we're not talking about goddesses, right? Like I've shown the Ishtar connection, but there are some other passages that I think refer to a male entity, and I think that's Gadriel, because the Book of Enoch clearly names him and says he's the one who led Eve astray.
Really? Oh man,
yeah.
This is interesting. So why do a lot of Christians tend to like look up to like Gabriel or Michael the Archangel and all that?
It's not Gabriel. It's Gadriel. It's a different.
Okay. I was gonna say
it's different. Yeah, it's different.
Okay.
It's Enoch says that Gadriel was one of the 5 angels who rebelled against God, and that he was part of deceiving Eve, and he was part of the fall of man in general. It also says that he showed humans how to make weapons of death. So in John 8:44, it says, it's God speaks to the Pharisees and says, "You are of your father, the devil.
The devil. Yeah.
He was a liar and a murderer from the beginning." That's Gadriel.
Okay,
Because he was
Gadriel, not Gabriel.
a
Okay.
liar from the beginning. He was a liar in the Garden of Eden, and he was a murderer because he was showing them how to create weapons of death.
Yeah, don't the Freemasons kind of like him too, because he taught them how to do all that stuff. Doesn't it have to play on like Cain and Tubal Cain stuff, or does it have a connection at all? Because I'm starting to believe that there's like almost deeper origins to like all this stuff. Like they're very connected with Cain for sure. Because of, he's just, I believe Cain is such a huge person of rebellion against God that even like the fallen kind of like connected with Cain. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I've got some thoughts on that.
I want to hear your craziest ideas.
All right. If you want that, I'll give it to you.
Let's drop them, man. Let's hear it.
In regards to Cain and Gadriel, actually, that's funny. This works out. Why did Adam and Eve have the impulse to cover their sexual organs right after the fall?
Shame. Right?
Sexual. Was it sexual?
Right.
I think, what if Gadriel, because I believe the Book of Enoch, I believe he was there. I believe that this was the entity who tempted Eve and started the fall of man. I think he also started the serpent seed. Because if the sin was sexual, Cain is possibly Gadriel's son.
Dang. Oh my
and
gosh.
I know people are going to, red flags are going up.
It's actually
he's
really
a Gnostic.
crazy, bro.
He's a Gnostic.
No.
I'm not.
Well, here's the thing: that Gnosticism is the fact that you think Lucifer was the light bringer, the Prometheus, the fire bringer, right? That freed us from the corralled environment of Eden that we were restricted to.
Yeah,
like that is the general understanding of Gnosticism. And what happens is a lot of things get blended in with each other. So like this would be called like heresy if we were to bring this up. But we were actually, dude. So I had Harley Braun. We in the panel discussion. You would have loved it, Tim, if this is something that we're getting into right now. Because
I'll do the next one. Just let me know.
Yeah. So he brought up, and he's very passionate about it. He comes off arrogant. He's a young man, but he means very well. And he's done a lot of research, and he is very strict that this is a serpent. The serpent seed thing is real. Like it is something that actually did take place.
I believe that.
And I've entertained the idea because it is a sexual thing.
Okay.
That happened in the garden. At least I'm coming around to the fact that, when you stick your hand in a cookie jar, you put the cookie in your mouth, your mom turns around the corner, it comes into the kitchen, like you cover your mouth, right?
Eve's crime, I'm with you, seems to be sexual.
I was going to go over to that. Yep.
I think that's why the punishment for Eve was reproductive.
Yes.
Right? So think about it like this. Cain is Gadriel's son. Abel is Adam's son. Cain means acquired. The word Cain means acquired, meaning he wasn't Adam and Eve's. He was acquired by Gadriel, in my opinion. And in the lineage, in the Bible, it says Enoch was the seventh from Adam. It's not the seventh from Adam if you include Cain. So,
right.
If you see what I'm saying,
I follow you exactly, because even when you get into the repercussions, right? Like what was the punishment to Eve? It was that she would have child pains and birth and all of this. Like there was a cause and effect to a certain part of her, right? Now that was childbearing. Okay.
And
so real quick, like Adam, how was Adam cursed? Like the ground was cursed on his part. What was Adam created for? Adam was created to till the ground. What was Eve created for? Eve was created to birth all of the living. So it's like he cursed them as well based off of what their sole purpose was, out of many other purposes, don't get me wrong, but
since we kicked this off by talking about the Jewish tradition, I'll throw in another Jewish tradition, which says that Eve had a child with Samael. And upon seeing that child, Eve realized that he wasn't human, right? She says in some of the Jewish texts, she says he was like the ones above. He was like the upper creatures, not the lower creatures. And Eve says, I have a man from the angel of the Lord. And that's why she said what she said in Genesis 4:1, where she says, I have a child of the Lord, because he's half angel, right? And this is my opinion, right? I don't think the seed war started with the Watchers. I think it started with Cain, and it got intensified later by the Watchers, and it's still going. But, and I think that that's recognized in, I think it's Matthew 13, where it says the enemy snuck into the garden and sowed the tares, and God says to let the tares grow together until the end time.
Yep. And then we
That's
throw them in the
two
fire.
seeds.
Yeah.
Let Eve's seed and the serpent seed grow together and exist together until the end, when everything will be reconciled.
Yeah. I believe that there's a physical seed of the enemy, like there's children of the devil, and I believe that there's children of God too, but we all have that choice to make, who we serve. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
here's another thing I had a question for you too. Like, do you think that people who are born like of this basically satanic seed line, do you think they can be redeemed since they're like half human and they could choose God? Because I know even
this
like
is exactly what we talked about on the live, dude.
Bro.
This is so crazy, bro.
Like,
this is like some sort of confirmation or something for me. I don't know.
Is God playing a joke on me right now?
Oh no, dude. This is wild, bro.
He's having an intense fit of deja vu over there.
Right, bro. Well, dude, I swear, this is like, okay, and I know that even the giants.
Hey, sure, why not?
Yeah, right. The giants, who are actually part of these tribes, like of, what am I saying? They fought for God's people too. They decided, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't, and they fought with David, I believe. They fought with David, if I'm not mistaken, and they decided to fight for him instead.
What were they, the lion-headed men or something like that?
There is people like that too. Yes.
What was
There's lion-headed men
called? But we had on Joel Thomas, Free the Rabbits podcast, and he talked about this whole idea of the
like
good
redemption.
Redemption.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing with that. It's like these entities that have created this bad seed, if serpent seed or whatever, they weren't always bad. They started out good and they rebelled.
Right.
But they're cut from the same cloth as the good entities.
Right.
So I don't know that it would be something in the blood itself that damns them to being redeemed. It's just the choices they make.
And you become tribal, right? Like you generally become, if that's my dad, I've got Team Dad. At some point I might be like good, right. I might not be, and then maybe go bad because I'm like, my morality, discernment gets thrown out the window because I'm just tribal to, my fathers. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. And like that was, I feel like I dropped a lot on people just a second ago. That's something I haven't talked about publicly. To my knowledge, I haven't talked about my true thoughts on the Adam and Eve thing. And some people are going to associate that opinion, the one that I put out there, with the one that Adam had a child with Lilith. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this entity who came down in the garden, this Nakash, the shining one, it had a human form or a humanoid form. It looked, and they have the ability to reproduce.
I even heard the apple was almost like a date rape drug. Like
but
that gave
that's the thing. Like,
yeah, I know I'm hitting on stuff again, bro. Like once she bit the apple and ate it, do not eat of that tree.
Gosh.
Ate it, got kind of like roofy, and
Oh.
then Nakash is like, "Oh, let me just squeeze on in here, bro," and just like, and he's just like, "All right, I'm gonna mate with her." And then Adam obviously had sex with Eve too. And then what's that identical twin process like where you can have like two fathers or some medical condition or something?
Right.
Yeah, it's two fathers, one
Yes.
embryo.
There we go. Yes, I believe that happened.
I can't say it on the show because it sounds like I'm cursing, but it's called. It's. I'll find it right now though.
Yeah, it's been proven to go down, right?
Yes,
like,
there is, and that does happen. I truly believe that's what happened in the garden.
I do
Sue
too.
me, I don't care. Like that's what I believe that happened. Like
it's called heteropaternal.
Heteropaternal.
Oh, this is where it gets bad, guys. Superfecundation. Superfecundation. I'm sorry, but that's the phenomenon, and it's actually been proven quite a few times.
Think about this though. So if, according to the Book of Enoch, this was perpetrated by Gadriel, in the Jewish tradition, they say yes, it was Samael. So maybe we're connecting some dots here. Maybe Gadriel is also known as Samael, which is very interesting. If that's the case, that means that Samael and Gadriel are represented in the Baphomet, who is an androgen.
Androgynous, yes. And that's why I think even now today, as we see in our society, that's why I see such a explosion of this kind of lifestyle, is because I believe people are trying to go back to what it was before, the old ways. You know what I'm saying? There was a whole cult, I forget what it was called, based off of basically this androgyny. Like they would literally have to be dress like that in order to appease this god. I forget which one it was, but they would do this back in those times, like in a mass scale.
This was a big thing in the temple of Ishtar.
Yes, and even in Freemasons believe, if you like look in their dogma and stuff like that, in order to achieve godhood, you have to be dressed like opposite gender you were born. Like to be androgynous is to attend like the biggest godhood possible. That's where you like basically ascend as a god. And that's why so much of our political figures, celebrities, and everything like that are like androgynous, and they take on another form of who they are. You know, they believe.
Yeah, it's like this spirit comes back into the culture, right? And I kind of like that better than the ancestral memory. I think it is that, like I talked about that earlier. I do think that that's a factor, but I think that these things sort of return in cycles, and they kind of come down and hover over us humans like a cloud. It's like in the 70s when you've got the second wave of feminism that kicks off, and Lilith. They're all talking about Lilith and how Lilith is this figure of liberation for women's rights and all that.
Right.
That's in my opinion, that's the spirit of Lilith coming back and inserting herself into the culture and becoming relevant again. And I think that you see that happening with this androgynous stuff happening across the boards. It's like the spirit of Ishtar has entered the room. She's back in the house. She's coming back, and she's reinventing herself in the modern culture.
Bro,
just recycling it.
Listen to this, right? So I'm putting a few things together. I just Googled some stuff. When we look at ancient cultures and we look at ancient societies, you know, one of them being closest to us would be like the Roman Empire, right? We know that what happened and what rose in the Roman Empire, which kind of assisted or maybe influenced its downfall, which it, you know, recreated itself in a church and it became a global religion. But at least that's what I think. You know, when we look at the fall of Rome, what was taking place in that time in Rome? Well, it was an androgynous spirit. It was this male-female confusion. It was where people started to, you know, men became feminine and females became, you know, masculine. And it really just kind of destroyed the empire. Well, when we're looking at that idea of multiple empires kind of going through the similar trend, right? They've never really put their finger on it, but I can only say from what we've talked about tonight that this androgynous spirit has assisted with the downfall of these certain empires throughout the world. But there's another thing. If the spirit is androgynous, it means it's solve and coagula, right? It's the upper hand pointing up and that other hand pointing down of the Baphomet, right? It's alchemy, right?
Yep.
It's taking something and
As above, so below.
and chemically destroying it to bring in something new, right? So for example, what do we see? What's an idea that is of a goddess that kind of represents alchemy? To me, it's Shiva. Well, Shiva is an androgynous god.
Yep.
Shiva it goes
Destroyer
through
god, too.
destruction,
Yeah.
but then out of that destruction comes life. It's like in the movie with
Or the Phoenix.
Godzilla. Like, listen, it's like the movie like with God. Yes, exactly. It's like the Godzilla movie, right? In the Godzilla movie, they're all moving around the cities and they're actually fighting and they're destroying the cities. But because of the radiation coming off of them, it's actually growing vegetation and plants and all kinds of different species that are only making the world a better place. This golden age out of the destruction.
Golden age, right. And Shiva is another one who has changed names throughout time.
Same with Kali.
Shiva is, and I'll break this down. I talked to Steven about this before, and in the show he did with me on my show. Like, we got into this whole CERN thing and this whole Shiva thing, right? Like, that's a whole other episode I'm gonna get into with you guys sometime, right? But what I found was that Shiva starts. One version of Shiva starts out in the Indus Valley, and as the people who believe in that god start to migrate, they move up through Turkey, and then they move up into Europe, and they take Shiva with them. But what happens? Shiva's name begins to change. The same god, same ritual practices, the name changes. I just want to throw that in there because I think that's how we get all these different names
gods
for
and
the
goddesses.
same god.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're just
even
recycled
look at the
all throughout
image.
the time.
Like, look at the image of Shiva. It's one hand up, one hand down. You know,
Yeah,
it's like it's dancing with all kinds of, and it's probably got what, 8 arms? Maybe that relates to Ishtar with the 8-pointed star. I don't know, but maybe there's something there. But it's
I never even thought about that.
I think that's what I'm saying, bro.
That's actually pretty astute because that's crazy because the some of the old depictions of the 8-pointed star in Sumer in the ancient world, they look like 8 arms. They have that hook in them. It's like, it's not straightened out. It's like an arm. That's pretty wild, man. But, and another thing, like, because Taylor, you're talking about the Freemasons, man, and I just had this thought. It's like getting into the androgynous. I don't know, like, they acknowledge the androgynous, right? And it's because they acknowledge divinity as being, and they because it's all about becoming your own god in some of these orders, right? So it's like
godhood ascension.
You're looking to become godlike, and it's like they see that as androgynous because it represents to them the dual nature of God. They believe that this is part of the mysteries. It's like some of this knowledge that has been shifted out of society today was just kind of common day knowledge back in the day to some of these people. So the Masons have their hand on some of that knowledge, and some of that includes this idea that God does have a dual nature that is male and female.
Right. But he made us obviously with a purpose, and we're obviously created either male or female. But the problem is they want to become God themselves, who has probably these characteristics of stuff because God is a spirit, but he has this nurturing spirit, but also, like, I believe I don't want to speak any blasphemy against God, but, there is obviously characteristics because we're all created in the image of God, right? So women being in the image of a God and men created in the image of God. So he has these characteristics of things, but they themselves want to be like, no, I want to be a God. So I'm just going to send and be androgynous, I just, that's
why. And what does the devil do? What is this? There you go.
Deceives and lies.
Well,
that's
kills, 8 arms behind the figure.
Look at that.
So
look at that.
There might be something to that, man. But what is this rebel group of cherubim do, known as the devil? what they do is they take a little bit of truth.
Yep.
Actually, what they do is
And
they
mix
give
it
you
with
some
lies.
truth and embed a lie in it.
Yeah, it's majority
oftentimes.
truth, but it's just a
lot of
smidgen
times.
lie to like
Mhm.
pollute the whole thing, you know?
Right.
So it sounds great, but you know, it's just like, I'm just gonna tweak it just a tad. It's just like leavened bread, you know, you put in some moldy bread with a whole loaf of bread, it's just gonna pollute the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
That's what these entities do in general. Like when we look at people who've channeled entities for information,
Right.
or people like the people of Sumer who had the Anunnaki story, they were getting information from higher entities. That's how they had the Anunnaki story in the first place. And what we see with that Anunnaki story is some truth with a bit of a lie. It's a remix on the Watchers.
Right.
Is what it is. But what do the Anunnaki say? They say, "Oh, we created you.
Yeah.
We created humanity."
That's what they're going to do in these times we're living in. I believe they're going to start appearing to men and say the same dang thing. You know, like they're going to be like, "Oh, we're your creators. You should follow us." And the new world order will look like a new age with these fallen ones, and we're supposed to just kind of intermingle with them in our society. I believe that's what we're going to see coming up here in, honestly, the next couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
and
have
I
a
think too
hunch.
that that's what's going to also contribute to a lot of this apostasy, like this falling away of the church, right? That
If aliens are real, then Jesus must not be real.
Well, for example, if we don't have these kinds of conversations, the discernment that is out there for the general population of the church, I mean, I just they're not going to be, grounded on some of
Prepared.
these ideas. You know what I'm saying?
You look at it, the old school Christian, like, what do you think is going to happen when they see these fallen ones appear? They're going to totally be freaked out. They're going to question whether the Bible's real. They're going to question, if this whole narrative of, Jesus being real, like they're not going to, like, aliens wasn't in the Bible anywhere that I read. Well, they're just a new name. They're based off of what society wants them to be, but they were always fallen angels and demons, dude.
Yeah. It's like if you go back and you look at even at the Greek origin of Atlantis, they said that the god Poseidon saw a human girl named Cleito and married her. And they had 5 sets of twins, and that's how Atlantis started. The firstborn was Atlas, right, which the island was named, and then Atlantis, the city, was there. But I think Poseidon, this is an example of what we're talking about, right? Like truth with a little bit of lie. I think Poseidon could be Cain, the first, aka the first Nephilim, because we've established that, I think, today.
Yes. And he had a physical mark on him, too, yeah.
You got to remember, though, the story came to the Greeks through Solon, who learned it from an Egyptian priest in the temple of the goddess Neith. So the names change, right, as the stories pass through cultures. I doubt the Egyptians called him Poseidon because that's a Greek name. And also, you think about it, this goddess Neith, right? If this priest was channeling this info from the entity Neith, that entity didn't tell the full truth. They told the truth with a lie hidden beneath.
Yep.
They're at war with God. They always spin the truth, as I believe the Anunnaki did. It just,
of course,
over time, that's what happened. And Solon heard that 600 BC, so the stories had time to morph too, right?
It's like playing a game of telephone. It's going to morph throughout, but it's still going to have the same little story, but the names are going to change,
And that's the story of the Watch. I'm just thinking about it right now. Like that whole Poseidon and Cleito, that's the story of the Watchers coming down to Mount Hermon and taking human wives and creating their own little, civilizations out of it, bloodlines.
Yep.
It's a breeding program. And again, it's like I don't ever hear anybody give a decent, I'm going to rephrase that. I just don't hear a lot of ideas on how they were on the earth in those days and after. How did they? Again, I just want to
they
shake
went
the
to
computer,
the sky, like you
how?
said. They went to the sky and had their little ships and stuff like that, or the Marine Kingdom.
And that was
the
what
Marine
I said.
Kingdom, mermaids and stuff. Marine Kingdom world is underneath the ocean too, so they could have survived that flood.
Yeah, bro, that's Asherah. Asherah is the queen of the sea, the Asherah pole, who we talked about. She had the 77 to 88 kings. She was the progenitress. She was the goddess of the sea.
And the fish god Dagon, too. That's very prevalent.
They could have, he's Assyrian too. They could have taken people for refuge down into the ocean.
Yes.
In ships or up into the sky with ships. I don't know which one it is. I'm not dogmatic on that. But
you ever watch that Star Wars?
Given this like association with the goddesses and the spacecraft that we see, represented in the ancient world, I think it's just safe to assume that they had some sort of spacecraft. Like you said, the Vimanas, those 100% existed. Solomon had one. That's another topic.
You can still see them in India. They're just on the ground, but they could definitely lift off and just go up into the sky. Like if we had that technology back today. And I think we're going to see some modernization of that. I think we're going to get that old knowledge back, and we're going to see some crazy stuff. I think.
And what I think is being prepared to by all these different mythologies and these stories is this general idea, this general narrative is being prepared and set forth for some kind of end goal agenda. And I think it's coming, maybe in our lifetimes. I don't know. We seem to be kind of getting conditioned to a lot of alien contact and a lot of, revealing of some sort of species that's
well, we got that mothership apparently heading towards us. Like,
but what I'm saying is like, when they come here, they're going to support all of the ancient history of all the cultures in society. Like, for example, this is why I straddle the idea. I straddle it. A lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I straddle this because we just really don't know. And this is where it says in Genesis, and God said, let us make man in our image. Well, that let us, I straddle the idea that is the Trinity, that is God. But then I also straddle the idea that this is some sort of this counsel or a creation from God that was to do God's will. And, because how else would so much of the church would fall away if we had, alien races come here.
Yeah.
And show how they actually maybe did make us. I don't know, right? I'm just throwing this out there, but to where it's like this whole Anunnaki narrative, but it's real, but it's also biblical. You see what I'm trying to say?
Well, here's the thing. Everything works
to
with
understand
ranks.
both sides.
Right. Everything works with ranks, even the kingdom of darkness and then, God's kingdom. If you look at it too, even on earth, there was like kings, queens, princes, stuff like that. In heaven, I believe it's also the same way. Like God is the Godhead of everything. Plus, there's the counsel of God, even says, in the Bible, it talks about the counsel of God. I believe God does work close with the counsel that he has, and these things that we're talking about, I think that it does have some validity to it. And to talk about it, I don't think is heresy at all, because it describes the counsel of God in the Bible. And I do think they had a role to play. Everybody in a rank of an army has a role to play. And we have to answer to the general, which is God, So I don't know. That's what I tend to believe.
And I think that's where this female figure of wisdom fits in. I think she's just part of this council. God has his group. He's got his council. He's got, like you say, he's got his kings, his principalities, his group. And I think that there's, we know what the enemy does. He tries to do the knockoff version of what God's doing. So I think there's not just one deceiver. There's a group of them. There's several deceivers.
Adversaries.
of evil, like Gadriel, Semyaza, Samael, Ishtar. It's the opposite of the divine council.
Yep.
Right. It's a remix on something holy that's been bastardized. Right. And even the Assyrian, I haven't talked about him yet today. The Assyrian is another one of these shadowy Satan-like figures that you see in the Bible. Very, very suspect for a Lucifer-like being, right? They say the Assyrian founded the cities of Babylon and Nineveh. Well, those are the two cities we've been talking about today, loosely. Like Ishtar comes out of Babylon, big time, swinging hard, and we see her in Nineveh too. So it's like it's like that Assyrian figure comes in, founds these pagan cities, then puts Ishtar over them as the main goddess. I don't know how all that works, but, you know, the Assyrian, and you know, even Crowley talks about how he got his book of the law from an entity in Egypt who looked like the Assyrian, in his
Jeez.
words.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too is he channeled this from this angel, right? He claims this angel's name was Awas, right?
Right.
And there's other entities that he's also had connections to as well. Lamb being
And see,
another one.
that's
Yeah.
the thing I want to make a distinction there, because when people think Iwas, I think sometimes they think of that image of Lamb. Lamb is the one that looks like an alien with the big old alien.
Yeah, the gray
head, right?
Modern day
face.
gray.
Iwas looked like a Middle Eastern man of distinction. He looked like the Assyrian.
Okay, bro, I'm going to make a connection here. Taylor, shut up. Listen. I love it though. I'm so glad Taylor's back, ladies and gentlemen. I love it, man. I love it. So listen. So I'm a Disney annual pass holder. Me and my wife, we go to Disney at least once a week, maybe 3 times a month. But we went recently and we went to Animal Kingdom, right? And we went to, in Animal Kingdom, there's a section of it, right? That's called Pandora. It's where Avatar is, right? It's all that Middle Eastern kind of, Indian culture, Hindu Avatar, right? All that kind of stuff. Kundalini, all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, in this culture wrapped around the movie is what I'm saying. James Cameron even says that he based it off of this. So we go into this ride. In this ride, we're taking a boat, and we're going along this little river. There's animatronics, right? The main animatronic that was there, which it costed $25 million to make, and the animatronic is singing this song, right? Well, it's that magi goddess in the movie Avatar that has that special connection with Awa, which is the female goddess, the Mother Earth. Because in the movie Avatar, it's where you make, everyone has that little ponytail that connects into everything that's a part of life, right? But Awa is a part of that tree of life that they say in the movie, right? That you connect into, and this is where your spirits go and live forever, pretty much. But anyways, this animatronic female magi is singing Awa, 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 and it comes from the movie. So it made me think, like, in the movie, in that Hindu religion, it's Awas is, I'm sorry, in the movie, not the Hindu religion, but in the movie, the Awas is a female god. But if you talked about what you're making a connection to with Crowley, that it was a man, I can only see that there's like, just the spirit is like androgynous, because the spirit's connected to what I'm talking about, and the spirit is also connected to what you're talking about. But there's two kind of distinct persons that it's portraying, if that makes sense, which makes me think of this duality behind what we're kind of getting into. I don't know if I said that right, but yeah, I found it interesting. I was like, oh my goodness. And it appears as an angel. Okay.
Yeah. God has, so here's, and this has been bugging me, so I'm going to throw this in here, because I couldn't recall the divine counsel spot in the Bible, but I think I found one. Psalm 82, verse 1. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of gods, little g gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak. And then it goes on from there, but it references God's place in this divine council. He sits among the midst of other gods, but they're little g gods. And I think that some of these little g gods rebelled. And that's the dynamic we're facing today. That's the root of this war we found ourselves in. We were born into a war between these entities. A lot of times we get caught in the crossfire, and we've been given a free will. We've been given a chance and a choice to decide which side we're going to be on. That's the way I see it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Thrown,
man. That's a
thrown
good
into the
point.
world full of wolves, man. That's I'm paraphrasing off that of the Bible verse, but we're definitely like sheep unto wolves. Like we definitely have to make that decision who we're either for God or against God. There is no in between. Otherwise, he's gonna spew us out of his mouth. We can't be lukewarm. Can't be like, I'll serve, maybe I watch this day and then like, Yahweh this day. It's just nah. So,
Yeah. And I think it just helps to, like, the name of the game today is, for me, is know thy enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about this stuff. The church, modern day believers are not talking about this stuff enough, in my opinion.
Thank
We're
you.
just not having this, and it needs to be had. It's like, you can go your whole life calling something Lucifer and having no idea what that means, or we can go and get into the Bible and some of these extra biblical texts that promote the Bible. I believe, like Enoch does, and we get an actual name for this entity, and along the way we can get a clearer version of the story and of what went down. Why are we in this war? Why is there sin in the world? Why is there heartache? All this stuff. It's like, well, get in here and and get your head around the seed war,
Mm-hmm.
and everything starts to fall into place.
It's funny too, because it's just like it's almost like a job. You can get a job at base level and always get the same amount of pay and be complacent, or you can choose to move up and try to do better and try to do the best and get a higher pay. We have a lot of complacent Christians that just want to just sit idly by and just have the barely just basis of everything, or you can be full out, use the spiritual gifts that God gave you, use your physical gifts God gave you, and just go hard for the kingdom. And I believe so much people are at a complacent spot right now, and they don't even want to contribute to the kingdom of God. They don't, as long as they're getting to heaven, that's all they care about. And it's kind of concerns me because I see a lot of these Christians. I deal with a lot of deliverance. God uses me to deliver people of demons and stuff like that. And through my experience and what I've seen, I see a lot of people who don't actually know who the enemy is. And that's a problem because even when doing deliverance and stuff, there's certain demons tied to certain things and certain habits and stuff like that. You have to actually deal with what's called the strongman demon. And then you have all these other demons that are usually, just kind of like aiding that strongman demon. So it is important to know your enemy. I like what you said, man. Know your enemy.
That's crazy, man. I can see in my studies and my research in these entities, I see it that way too. Like, there's definitely a hierarchy. They have these other smaller entities running around doing stuff for them.
Yeah.
And you're saying, like, when you get in a room, and I've heard this with stories of deliverance stories before too, where the entity will say that it's Lilith. They'll actually use one of these names like that are in the Bible, but it's actually some sort of a spirit working for Lilith.
Exactly. They try to lie. See, they lie, kill, steal, and destroy like their father. So it's just, they will always try to spin it too. That's why God even says, like, when I'm doing these deliverance on people too, I won't even talk to the demon. You're not even supposed to talk to the demon because all they're going to do is lie. That's what they're created to do. So if you're talking with them, you're not going to hear any truth. That's why you need to, have the Holy Spirit when you're doing this stuff. And it's just, you need to discern. You need that discerner, the Holy Spirit discernment. Otherwise, you're just going to get your head filled full of lies. You're going to be constantly figuring out who's the enemy. What are we doing? Like, you're just going to be lost, bro. That's why it's so important to have God, man. That's
such a wild aspect. A wild way to look at this stuff is through this idea that you've presented here. Like, just your experiences with dealing with these things out on the street.
Yes.
Man, and that's so real. Like, people don't even realize how real this is.
Yes.
You can be manipulated by these demonic forces and not even know it.
And not even know it. Yep.
That's why you have to have a walk with God and you have to strengthen it.
That's why I want everybody to have their own personal relationship with God because, dude, if we're not actually putting in the work, the Bible says literally, study to show thyself approved. I believe we have to know the truth, but not only know the truth, know our enemy so we don't actually fall into the traps of our enemy. It's just like war, bro. Like, you're not just going to go to the front line and be like, all right, let's go. You're going to study your enemy before you go into war. And, you don't want to like go into a room. If you're doing like CQB in your room, you want to know how many guys you're going to deal with, who's the main target, and get in, get out. And that's it. It's not going to be, oh, here's a gun, go into the building and just start clearing rooms, dude. You're like, no, screw this. I'm going to throw a grenade in that room, clear as much as possible. Then we're going to CQB you and go in, baby. Like, like,
and it's like, I've seen people in the comments too, and who will say like, oh, you're focusing too much on the power of the darkness. You need to,
oh God, you're fear mongering, Tim.
Yeah. You're bringing like, well, what do you, I'm trying to do something that everybody else is not doing behind pulpits across the nation.
Amen. That's what's needed. Yeah.
It's
not being talked about enough, bro. Like, dude, name one church that you've been in that has talked about what we're talking about right now. I'll wait. None of them. None that I've been to. Like,
it's crickets,
and it's, dude, people's souls are at stake. That's what we're dealing with. That's why we created this show, bro. People need Jesus, man. We're living in deceptive times, and people are just not ready for any of it. And then if us Christians do talk about it, oh, that's heresy. That's absolutely garbage. You're of the devil. That's what we're dealing with. Some of our own brothers and sisters are shutting it down too. Question everything on this earth and outside of this earth except God. That's why, dude, that's just, I'm a punk rocker too. Like, bro, it's just like, I question the system. I question all that stuff. Something I will never question is God, but we have to question why things are the way they are. Otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere. We're just going to believe what, our father and our mother told us. Like, oh, I'm just going to do it because everybody's doing it. Like, don't be a conformist, like question everything except God. God's ways are higher than man's ways. That's what it says in the Bible.
Yeah, and too, like it's a lot of what the enemy that I've noticed what he does is he's really good at blurring things, and he likes things to be blurry, but he wants you to be satisfied with your sight, right? It's like, hey, I can still see, I'm fine. And some people, before they put that first pair of glasses on, they don't even know that they had any eye problems like at all, right? They don't even know that, oh my goodness, like this is what the truth or reality really looks like. And I feel what we do too, man, is Tim, you're involved in this as well with your show and our show, is we're like at the doctor's office, trying to get a new prescription, and the doctor goes, is this one better or before? Better or worse? And I'm like, better. And we choose to be like, or we at least choose to stretch ourselves a little bit more than the average Christian. I would definitely say that we definitely stretch ourselves in the conversations that we have, because
iron
we're
sharpens
trying like we're trying to get clearer, so things will make more sense to us a little bit. And I even think just at the foundation of it all, I think we are making more sense of our reality today with the cultures that have documented history and our past. And we're making it more clear to other people out there that we're either a part of some other secular agenda or narrative, and they're like, oh wait, dude, nah, like the biblical stuff is like spot on, and they're coming to the truth, they're coming to Christ, and it's important. I'm glad we're having these kinds of conversations, man. They're much needed conversations. They take time.
Yeah, I think so. We need to unblur things because, like you say, the enemy likes things to be blurry, and that's what I see. I see a lack of knowledge across the boards today with this stuff that's of a spiritual nature. It's like our technological abilities have far surpassed our spiritual abilities right now.
My people will perish due to lack of what? Knowledge.
So. It's, I mean, you can just see how advanced this civilization is. I've seen it in my life because I remember a time when we didn't have cell phones or internet. I definitely remember a time where we didn't have internet, and I've seen all this stuff happen in my lifetime, and it's wild to sit back and think about how far we've come. But what's held in the balance, what's lacking in the balance, I think, is spiritual advances. And I know, like, people are becoming more spiritual now. Like, that's been a current thing that's happening. But you got to make sure that, like, the best way to get spiritual and know whose side you're on and and by that I mean, good versus evil, honestly. Like, read your Bible every day. That's the best way to do this.
Amen.
It's a way to stay grounded, and you learn all this new stuff. All this stuff that I'm talking about today, regardless of what you think about it and whether you agree with me or not, I got this from just reading my Bible.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
and looking more into some of the stuff, of course, that I see that looks interesting. But all this stuff is Asherah, Lilith, Ishtar, it's all in there.
yep.
And then I tag in the book of Enoch, right? Because I like that book. I mean, I think my opinion is that it was in the Bible at one point. I don't want to get into why it was taken out because I don't really even know why. But anyway, I think it's a good extra biblical study. And it says, it, talking about unblurring this stuff for people, it says the name of this entity, Gadriel, and I never hear anybody talking about it. And it's like this entity was cursed to walk the earth. This entity is among us. This isn't like one of the watchers who's been locked in the valleys of the earth below mountains or below oceans. Those 200 watchers, they got locked up. Are they still locked up? I don't know, because I think at the end times they're going to be released. But anyway, for a long time they've been locked up. This entity has not. This entity has been roaming the earth.
That is interesting. Yeah.
So I think it's good to know that.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot, I believe there's a lot of these entities walking about too that kind of get a little bit of free reign until Jesus comes back and makes new, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right
So-
on, man. Well, Tim, dude, we've put in 2 hours of a great conversation, man. This is always an awesome time, man, having you on. Please, would you let the audience know where they can find your show and where they can support you the most?
Yeah, man, of course. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Taylor. I really enjoyed talking to you guys as always, man. We'll have to do it again. And yeah, actually I'm on every Sunday. I forgot to mention this earlier. Every Sunday I have a show over at Cult of Conspiracy. It's called Conspiracy Garden. If you need something to listen to on a Sunday or any other day, really, because it's up there, just go check that out. But my main show and where you can find me is Six Sensory Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Patreon, and Instagram. And again, guys, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude, I love it every time, man. So real quick before we go, Taylor's going to pray it out for all the androgynous spirits that are around. We're going to cast them out of here. So,
Amen.
And real quick, Taylor, give a little show, man, of show Tim your new tat, bro.
Yeah, bro. So
This
I
guy's
ride
crazy,
motorcycles,
bro.
man. I told the guy I like punk rock, God, and freedom and motorcycles, and this is what happened.
Well,
Wow.
point it to the camera, you dummy.
Yeah, move to the right.
Oh, here we go.
There
Here
you
we
go.
go. Okay.
There you go.
Oh
Yeah,
my
dude.
goodness.
Wow.
Isn't
That's
that crazy?
That's
Yeah,
actually
that's
pretty
crazy,
decent.
man.
That's
That's
pretty
epic.
good.
I know,
Yeah,
right? It's
that's
pretty nice. It's
epic.
probably my favorite tattoo, to be honest. Besides this one.
Yeah, he did a good job with it, man. That is epic.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
right on, man. So Taylor, go ahead, man. Pray it out for us, and then we'll move right over into the
right.
next segment, folks. Biblical Hitman Debrief.
Yes, sir. All right. Father God, we just give you glory, honor, and praise. Thank you that we can have this platform to even talk about the things of you and just to really dive deep and just kind of get into your truth, Father, in this world of like a lot of lies being thrown around. I just pray that you give us wisdom, discernment, and knowledge. Let us not be deceived. And I just pray that you continue to bless us and bless Tim and his show, and just help us to really just expose the enemy and, kind of maybe wake up Christians that, haven't been able to ask questions and really dive deep. I just pray that you just give us the tools that we need, and hopefully we can make a difference. And I just pray that we just cut off any demonic spirits trying to interfere with any of our shows in the name of Jesus. I plead the blood of Jesus Christ over all of our viewers and all of us on our shows. I just continue to protect us and guide us, Father God, and in Jesus Christ I pray. Amen.
All right. Geez, I can never share screen again on Riverside ever. Thanks, Riverside. But man, hey, shout out to Tim Constantine, everyone. 6th Sensory Podcast. Check him out, support him. Go over there, like, follow, subscribe, notifications, all the stuff over there. Help him out. Dude's got a great show. He's a wealth of information and research as well. You know, this episode we really there's certain topics that are
Taboo.
untouchable.
Yeah.
They shall not be touched. But I think it's okay just to just stretch a little bit, you know, and you know, people are probably going to call me a heretic or something, or they're going to the heresy stone him. I actually am glad that there is no more stoning.
Right.
I'm glad that crucifixion is outdated.
Yeah. Because I think we would have been next up for
that.
Man. Yo.
But there's something to it, man. There's something to the topic that he's getting into. There's something to the topic of the androgynous goddess spirit that bounces around to different people that have built and established cultural foundations and also, you know, governmental foundations, right? We're talking about John Dee, the British Empire. We're talking about George Washington, right? The United States of America. And we have to understand these people that have started these institutions, they have claimed and have been proven to be deists. They have been proven to be of the mysticism that pertains to occult knowledge, all this kind of stuff. And that's why we kind of cover a lot of these things, because it helps break down a little bit of that other side, that enemy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Our enemy.
Yeah.
It's our enemy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the majority of people like who started this country are into this type of stuff and Freemason stuff, we have to delve into what do they exactly believe, why they believe it, and, you know, we need to be questioning these things. We can't just be like accepting of everything that's going on. We have to dive deep and study to show thyself approved and really know what's going on. Because I don't, you know, we can't be lost out here. We got to question some stuff.
Well, I always say this too, right? Is God the one that brings in the Antichrist? It's like, no, in my opinion, and okay, God's in control of everything. Right. Let me just kind of just full disclaimer. God's in control of everything. This is part of the beginning and the end, right? But my point is he allows that side of those adversaries to do what they want to do, but there's an agenda that they have. That agenda is to come here to proclaim themselves as the Antichrist, but to deceive the whole world and to have them worship them. Right. They want that worship, these fallen angels, these entities, these principalities, powers, the darkness, the demons, the devils, right? Satan, Lucifer, all of it. It's just, there is this other side that is an adversary against God. And they really, really want, at the end of the day, want to be worshiped like God.
Right.
Satan wants to be worshiped like God.
He wants to steal all the glory, man. So,
you know, it's the ultimate counterfeit of the truth. You know what I'm saying? But here at the Biblical Hitman, we take out those narratives. We shoot rockets in the sky and we're bringing down UFOs, baby.
Yeah, man.
Taylor, it was really fun, man. You had a lot of good questions. You were even tying in some really good stuff with that episode, man.
It was fun, man.
Yeah. Glad to have you back, man.
I know,
the
man.
background is pretty cool.
Right?
Hey,
it's
everyone,
like, you know.
Everyone, thumbs up in the live chat down below. Tell me how much you're excited. Taylor is back. And it seems to be like we can't get both of you guys on.
I know, at the same
Jesse's
time,
out,
dude.
you're
I
on.
know.
Either Jesse's on, you're out. We will get the crew together, folks. I promise. There's just been a bunch of
hiccups
of life stuff. Just a lot of life stuff. You know, you had a transition to another job. You had a trans.
I know. I had a trans.
No, but you know, you had to adapt to a new schedule.
Yeah.
How you liking
the
day?
I love it,
liking
man.
the day?
I love the day. I feel like a human being again. I don't feel like the creature of the night.
These are
stuff.
children of the day,
right?
folks.
Right. Children of the light are here now.
That's funny, man. Man. Yeah. So I love doing episodes with Tim. He always kind of comes in, rocks it, kills it. But he's a very humble, respectful person. Like he doesn't have any malicious intent with the topics he he gets into and talks about, right? And he doesn't come in and try to prove his point in any way of arrogance or anything like that. He really just tries to break it down through some of the things that he's researched.
Independent journalism for sure, man. He's diving deep, does the research, you know what I'm saying? Does the homework.
Well, that's what we have to be. Well, and that's what we are. Like we are, in a way, we are journalists for Jesus Christ. We are journalists for the truth, right? For that the standard of the Bible. Like we are here to ask questions, to interview certain people that may not be of the faith, may be of the faith, and we've had those people in the past. But we're here to humble ourselves in a way to where we build relationships with people, we network with people,
right?
But we want people to see Christ in us. How else can we do that? You know, obviously we could do that outside these doors of this studio, but at the same time, inside the studio, we got to bring people in, share with them our perspectives and how we see things biblically versus their perspective, right?
You
know, like sometimes we're going to have people that practice, you know, some dark stuff, and we have them on the show because we're trying to build a level of discernment, not only for ourselves, but for the viewers as well, to kind of put some puzzle pieces together. You know, like, why do these things of the darkness function this way? Oh, well, once you start to notice certain things, then you can start to really be aware of other things that happen in our reality. And that's the biggest goal that I'm trying to achieve with that.
There's reasons behind why, you know, the occult does what it does and why Christians do what we do, you know, and it's just when you see all this stuff taking place all throughout history, all this Gnosticism and occultism, and, you know, we need to get to the bottom of it because we don't want to believe the same stuff that could be a lie. You know, we need to seek the truth. We need to, it's a narrow gate, man. And there's only one name under heaven of which ye shall be saved, and that's through Jesus Christ, folks. Only through that. Nothing else. We ain't get to heaven by any other name, any other God. Because in the end, bro, it's Yahweh or no way.
Yeah, no, seriously. I like that. Well, and you know what, man, what really helps people maybe come to the faith is I'll say this. We need to understand what our nature is. We need to understand that we are sinners in need of redemption, in need of a savior. Now, we can't save ourselves from this fire, folks. We can't. You know, the only God can save us from that fire through Jesus Christ. And you know, and we need to understand that not only is it just sin that is it's almost like the adversary that lives with us each and every day, right? It's this flesh suit that we live in. Yes, exactly.
Fighting daily, bro. We got to fight it. Carry our cross daily, man. You know what I'm saying?
And you know what's crazy is, like, well, the normal man, when we have these kind of conversations like we're having right now, they don't understand what we're saying. They don't understand that.
That's why we have this podcast.
That's why, exactly. So I think what the coolest thing is that God's doing with this show is, you know, because I had this talk with another, actually a preacher.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. And he's like, why can't we just use the story of Jesus Christ? Or why can't we just use the gospel to save people? And I was like, it is the number one thing that does save people. I stay by that because it's what saved me. But I've also said that the things that we do talk about, the things that the supernatural aspects that we get into, the alternative view from the average Christian church down the street.
Yeah.
We are bringing people to the gospel. Like, we are bringing people to the gospel because there is truth in what we're saying. And out in the world right now, there's a lot of tentacles. Satan's like got tentacles all over the place. He's got New Age movement.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this.
He's got, and there's all these little truths and all these little things, but it's not a full truth. And he's bringing in all these people into this hive mind to take them into the pit of hell.
Pretty much.
But that's why and I feel called to do this, man. I mean, why else would I be doing all the work that I'm doing? I don't know if you folks really know, but
He's really putting in some work, dude. Yeah, bro.
This is a lot of work.
Stevie is really putting in some work.
Full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm working overtime at my main job.
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, bro.
But you know what? Like God's put it on my heart just to go harder. you know, and I might not be doing everything right. I might not be doing everything perfectly. I'm not a perfect person. I'm always gonna be learning, and God's molding me and changing me. He's changing he's molding all of us through this
But he's gonna give
process.
his 10 out of 10 every time though. So
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know,
So,
like we're all learning, dude. Everybody's learning. I'm learning. I'm not perfect. We're not perfect, but hey, we're all on this journey together and we're all in this life and we only get one and it's a short life. So we want to make sure we're getting to the bottom of things and getting the full truth and not just half truth,
right.
you know?
Amen, brother. Well, folks,
So
if you enjoyed this episode, you know, you want to support the show, it's free. Hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment down below about what it is we talked about. You know, if you disagree, you agree, it really don't matter. But that's really the only place we can engage with the audience. And trust me, we try to get back to every single comment that is laid out there, good or bad, really. You know, you might not get a like, you might get a like, but you know, if you want to support us on the audio platforms as well, we're over on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We drop episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Audio drops at 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, and YouTube drops at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So, if you want to watch the show twice, come on, support us, baby. You know, we're there. But with all that said, we thank you for tuning in, and we love you. We're gonna catch you next time, folks.